Okay, let's get the session rolling. A very warm welcome, Varsha. Varsha Kini, as many people might not be knowing her because she's not so active in the Pan India groups. So the Mumbai community knows her more closely with all the kind of vibrant stuff that is happening in her life, career-wise, personal lives, her hobbies, and so on and so forth. Uh, uh, Varsha, over to you to introduce yourself and to kickstart this session.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you guys are joining from different regions, but good to have you here. And over the series session, I might get to know you a little bit more. Speaking of which, like sir said, my name is Varsha Kini. And can someone just quickly confirm I'm audible enough and loud enough for everyone? Okay. So, to begin with, I work as the regional talent development head for Pune, Nashik, and Goa in TCS. And I have been in this role for almost 2 years now. November end, I'll be completing 2 years. Before that, I was working in talent development, but in a different role. I am born and raised in Mumbai, but shifted to Pune around 2 years ago, which is when coincidentally I also got this role. Uh, when I'm not working in TCS, I try to keep myself busy with some things. I started off with doing some mandala art during COVID period because we had to keep ourselves busy doing something. But turns out that because I couldn't meditate in a traditional way back then, at least, mandala art helped me with my anxiety because that art form is so intricate in nature that whether you like it or not, you have to stay in the moment to kind of complete that artwork. So it kind of became a workaround for my meditation gap that I had. One thing led to another, and finally it culminated into me creating t-shirts along with one of my friends. This was done in a dropship model. We created the site and everything, and then he took some of the designs and he would put that on the t-shirt and sell. Around the same time, I started something called as improvised theater, right? So those who don't know what improvised theater is, it is basically getting on the stage without a script. You don't know what you're going to talk, you don't know what character you're going to be. You just take a few suggestions from your audience, and based on those suggestions, you create different scenes, or it eventually came to a point where we would create a full-fledged play, 1.5 hour play, based on the few suggestions that we would get from the audience, including the characters, including the storyline. All of that would be created on the spot. The reason why I took this up was, while some people don't agree to this, I am still very much of an introvert. I'm good in speaking. I'm good with public speaking and interpersonal skills, but I don't prefer to engage as much. So the persona that I have within that is an introvert. So I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and do something that would put me in an uncomfortable situation. And I'll come to that why a little later. But I wanted to do that. And I have been doing that for 10 years now. This is the 10th year. And somewhere over the course, I started taking workshops on improv because very quickly we realized that in the corporate world, when we are talking about being a good team player or a good leader, a lot of the skill sets that are required to play those roles are the same skill sets that you have to develop to become a good improviser. For example, a good listener, having empathy, having your teammates back, because nothing is really planned when you're on stage. So you are heavily dependent on the people around you, and they are dependent on you. So the skill sets that you develop over time when you're doing improvised theaters, exactly the same that you'd require in leadership or team building skills. So very quickly, a friend of mine who I have formed a theater group with, he and I came up with a framework on how this can be replicated for corporate training. And since then, we have been doing a lot of corporate training for improvised theater, teaching the skill set in the corporate world, and also explaining the benefits of each of the skill set. We also do this for theater enthusiasts outside of corporate. So some people, they would want to become actors, they would want to do theater, and improvising on stage when you forget that, or not getting intimidated or nervous when you draw a blank. No one can teach that to you better than an improviser, right? So we do those kind of workshops as well. How to be authentic, how to be comfortable, even in a room full of strangers, is something that is very, very pertinent in today's day and age. Doesn't matter whether you're in a corporate or in any other situation. So these are some of the things that I have been doing in my workshops as well. These happen during weekends or when I have less work in TCS. And very recently, actually last week, I finally, after years of contemplating and then asking sir multiple times, should I do it? I finally now have my YouTube channel. There's one video on it, which explicitly speaks about people with mental health conditions in a workspace. There's a lot of inhibition around corporate world where people are little hesitant to admit that they have health conditions because of the taboo that is attached to it. Also, because there might be some people who would be hesitant to take such individuals in their team, thinking that, oh, maybe this person will not be productive, or this person may not really, will have to walk around eggshells, all of that. Because there's a lot of misconception and more dangerously, lack of knowledge altogether, right? So the channel that I have started, week on week, my aim is to educate people on all the myths surrounding some of the mental health conditions, and also as a manager, let's say if I have some people in my team who have been diagnosed of any MI, how to deal with that, because I know I need to be dealt in a certain way because of my mental health conditions, right? So if I can replicate that for someone, I can't take credit for it completely, actually. My counterpart in Chennai, the Chennai regional head, she once asked me, because I've been very open about my mental health conditions in my organization. So she once asked me, Vasha, I have someone in my team right now who's been diagnosed of bipolar type 2. I don't know how to deal with that. While I empathize or I have all the sympathies for her, and I'm not going to really color my uh, observations about her because of this information, but I really need to understand the right way of dealing with this person on a day-to-day basis, which is what gave me the idea actually that nobody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about, oh, you need to be empathetic, you need to be making some leeways for people. But how? How do I balance between making that leeway versus meeting the competitive deadline to come from? Because end of the day, we need to get the work done as well. So how do you put that balance? So all of that is eventually going to go in the YouTube channel. Besides that, I have three cats at home who I adore to death. And they are mostly almost like my children. So a lot of my time also goes in nurturing them. They might look like very well trained. I don't train them, just pamper and spoil them, but they're very well behaved at home. So sometimes I also, on a pro bono basis, do cat training for people who have aggressive cats, how to kind of pacify them and how to get them to obey you. So I do that as well sometimes. So anything that is related to training, basically, if I can impart knowledge, I'm very happy to do that. And eventually, if everything goes right, I am kind of working on a book with all my experiences on all the framework that I have built for myself in order to be performing in a high pressure job on a day-to-day basis. Because as a regional head, I have to manage around 52,000 employees on a daily basis. So any crisis that comes along, if you can see in the background, I'm still in the office very much right now. And I was kind of juggling between the meetings. I told her I might join 5 minutes late. So sometimes it becomes very, very uh, pressurizing, the role, very demanding. So in that case, how do I uh, balance between my depression phase? How do I manage my hypomania? Because that is also equally important. So yeah, that's about me.
Uh, Wonderful, overview of what represents you and your, ability to sort of navigate, pathways towards barriers that you face, because you can't afford to have that introvert persona in the role you are playing, right? Which is a very people interface kind of a role, right? You can't allow that to be predominant there. And the
Correct.
kind of initiatives you have taken to change that to us, we can't intrinsically change who we are, but this has made you sort of more outgoing, helps you with the uh, interactions with people much better. And I love that, love the concept, Varsha, of using improv for business and workplace, right? For training, for communication. And by the way, for the people who have joined in today, Varsha had demonstrated this at a wonderful workshop when she had come to join us in Mumbai, offline workshop on World Mental Health Day 2023. Yeah, and we got first-hand taste of how powerful it is. Yeah, helps with attention, focus, and lot of things, because it helps us not to trail off from conversations. Varsha, I would like you to also draw us on those difficult times where you were about to put in your papers, right?
Mm.
And how a supportive environment at workplace changed the whole course of your life. Then subsequently, it's not an exaggeration, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So before I get to that point, I'll just give a s- tiny background to all of you. So I didn't know anything about mental health conditions at all. Before I joined Sir in Bipolar India when I had met them in Andheri East years ago. But there were always telltale signs with me because my dad was diagnosed of bipolar. And eventually we found out that not just the environmental factor, for me, I had inherited the condition from my father, which I came to know years later. But those telltale signs are always there. I was never diagnosed for a very, very long time. The first time the glimpse of that something is not correct happened somewhere in 2011 or 2012 when I was living in Bangalore alone. I was around 25, 26 years old, 26 years old. And that is the first time insomnia hit me very bad. I used to sleep only once alternate days. And in order to tire myself, thinking that if I get tired, I probably will be able to sleep, I used to gym for 2 hours, upward of 2 hours on some days. But even with doing that, I would still be very active, still be very energetic. And much later, years later, I came to know that's what hypomania feels like, right? Around the same time, I also got into alcohol addiction because I was staying alone and I was trying to find ways to cope with whatever was happening in my head. And I was also on sort of a edge whether I should get married to my then boyfriend or not because there were red flags, but then I come from a very dysfunctional family. I didn't know what healthy relationships look like. And I was not very wise at that time as well. So all of those things led to alcohol addiction to a point where I used to down like an entire bottle of wine before reaching office in the morning, right? And I wouldn't feel drunk because again, my dad um, was a known alcoholic and a chain smoker. So, what we have inherited, both my sister and I, from my dad, is a strong resistance to alcohol. I can, even today, consume as much alcohol I want without getting drunk, which is not good because then your bloodstream, the alcohol enters, and there all sorts of problems occur. Um, alert. As of today, I'm completely off alcohol. I haven't had alcohol in the last 3 years, maybe, not even socially. I've completely left that. But back then, this happened. And I used to keep coming back to Mumbai. I used to do up and down. Of course, by then I was engaged to my then boyfriend. And somewhere down the line, I didn't realize because I was so out of it that I got accidentally pregnant around that time. And because of this whole alcohol consumption and too much of exercise and not having a healthy lifestyle, I had a very early miscarriage. at that time. And all hell broke loose because I couldn't tell it to my mom. I couldn't tell anyone about it because this was literally out of wedlock, right? But I just overcame that. By the time I came back, it was already time for me to get married, and then we just put it behind me. But that was the beginning of understanding that something's not right, something's not clicking. Because I was not very glowing, happy bride, even on my wedding day. Something felt very numb inside for me. Still did not understand that there's something I need help for, because back then nobody really spoke about such conditions. Um, my marriage lasted exactly probably 2 years because to begin with, I moved from one dysfunctional family to a very dysfunctional, and really the ideologies and nothing matched over there. And I was pressurized into quitting my job. I was expected to wake up at 5 in the morning, even on weekends, finish all the household work. I used to live in Powai. My office was in Burley, but I was expected to come back by 6:30, which is practically not possible for anyone to do. Because office time is only till 6:30. How do you reach from Burley to Powai back then, by then, right? So all of that happened, and it kind of exasperated all of my dormant uh, bipolar. Again, till then, it was not diagnosed. Till then, I did not ask for any help. But one thing led to another. After 2 years, um, my husband had an affair with someone in his office, and that was like the last straw for me. I said, okay, I tried enough. This is not working. Let's separate ways. We had a relatively amicable divorce, but that kind of kept on adding to what was happening inside my head and inside me. The PTSD kept on piling up for me. And about 2 years after the divorce, I was diagnosed of endometriosis. Those who don't know, it is an ovarian condition for women, and it has a lot of hormonal fluctuation. There's no cure for endometriosis. It's super painful, and the only workaround, there's no treatment, there's a workaround for it, is that you do the surgery, take out the cyst, and then put the person on menopause. So at the age of 32, uh, I was told that I would be put on indefinite menopause, right? Which means hormonal fluctuation, which means immense weight gain, which also, thankfully, in my case, didn't happen. It makes you look a little older than how you are. Basically, it's how women hit menopause and they suddenly start looking way older. Their skin's saggy and there's a lot of facial hair that happens, all of that. So when the hormonal fluctuations happen, what would it lead to? But it led to even more depression. When all of this was happening, my previous company, the one before TCS, where I was working, when the whole divorce talk was happening and nothing was working well for me, my performance dipped in the office to a point where, from winning the best employee of the quarter awards back to back for 2 to 3 quarters, I was warned that if I don't really improve, I will be put on performance improvement plan, um, which then led me to think of this is not something where I want to work. Maybe if I change my job, change the scene, it would help me. So by the time I joined TCS, my code dates were coinciding with my probation period in TCS. And I had to tell my then boss that I have to go to court because those who have gone to civil courts, they would know. They don't negotiate dates with you. They just pronounce one date that you have to come on this date, so and so time, and you have to be there. There's no option. So I can't really leave office hours without telling my boss where I'm going. So in confidence, I told her that this is what is happening. I may need to leave on some days, but I will make up for that. Turns out she didn't like divorced people, and she made my life miserable in the first 6 months to a point where she forced me, like saying, "Please resign. I don't want you in the team. You please resign and go from TCS." And I was very taken aback by that because I had joined TCS thinking, oh, it's a very pro mental health company, and people are very supportive of each other, and people are very inclusive, all of that. So I was very heartbroken. um, didn't leave me any choice. I was about to put down my papers in TCS as well. However, John uh, Taluri, who was my next boss in TCS, he intervened on the last day when I was going on my way to HR office. He said, "What are you doing? You have so much potential. Don't quit. Stand up for yourself. Go talk to her. There is no policy. She can't ask you to resign. If she doesn't like your performance, she can just ask you to leave her project. TCS will take that decision. HR will take that decision. She can't force you to resign. Go talk to the HR and tell them I will take you in my team." And I was very surprised because I had joined TCS as an instructional designer. What he was offering me was to become an engagement manager in a big business engagement for universities in Ireland and in India, big universities like BITS and IIMs. I was like, "But John, I'm not an MBA. You require an MBA to take this role." He said, "Varsha, I don't require an MBA. I just need one person who can learn very quickly and who has the intent to work. Do you have it?" Said, "Yes, I do." That's enough for me. Whatever mental health condition you have, whatever personal problems you have, fix it. And please come and join my team. And on the day when I was going to put down my papers, I instead took up John's offer. And that's how my career in TCS actually began. Since I have been in TCS now for 10 years, and I started off as an engagement manager, then moved on to sales. I was in team of 20 men, a single woman, for about 2 years, and I used to get more business than any one of them. Sometimes all the junior salespeople combined, and to a point where my boss completely relied on me. Wherever he could not go and he could not interact with clients, I was there. So I was traveling for 15 days a month to various cities in India. But all of that was going well until endometriosis hit. When I got the surgery done, when I was put in on the menopause injections and then subsequent medicines, weight gain happened, depression increased tenfold. That is when finally, in 2018, after years of struggling with it, I decided I need to take help at this point, because this cannot be normal anymore. For years, if this is happening, this cannot be normal. And I was given a wonderful opportunity, and not many people get that. I was very lucky to get it, and I didn't want to really spoil anything in that. So I thought, let me take that help. Let me see what happens. And that is when first time I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And that's when I also looked up if there is any support group that I can join. Of course, TCS was there. TCS Cares is something which is dedicated department of around 250 to 300 people working dedicatedly just to make sure we have mental health wellness, and there is free therapy sessions. I can just pick up the phone. There is an in-house therapist who comes every day in every office of TCS. You just pick up the phone and tell them, "You know what, I want to talk," immediately. They'll give you the appointment. You can go talk. Everything is confidential. You can also take wellness leaves, mental distress leaves in TCS. So in your earned leaves and your casual leaves, you have to give a reason why you're taking the leave. One of the reasons is I am mentally not prepared to come to office today. If that happens, it doesn't go to your supervisor to approve. It is auto approved in the system. Those are one of the few um, instances where nobody waits for approval. It is given to you. So I didn't want to waste, or I didn't want to give up on such a wonderful thing. So I did take CBT treatment over the years. And while that was helping me, Bipolar India was like a saving grace for me. Vijay sir was always there whenever I had to talk or whenever I was feeling jittery. I would just message him and say, "Varsha, I will call you." And we would have that talk. So everything was going well for me until and the career progression also was happening. I was very happy in my project with John. I learned more than any MBA college could ever teach me. In fact, to a point where I once went as a jury member in NM college. Someone who's not done MBA in her life was called to judge business models prepared by final year. and I'm calling. So all credit goes to John sir, and I always tell him, I ping him even today, that all the things that you've taught me, I'm still using this after all these years. So career started progressing. I moved from education, business to manufacturing, and that is when my office moved to Power, where I used to live. All right. I was very confident. I was very excited. The project was very nice. The accounts that I would work with would teach me a lot. However, every time I would reach office, I would have a mental breakdown. I would go to the washroom and I would cry. I was not understanding first thing about manufacturing. When I look back, it felt so stupid. Like it was not rocket science. I'm already working on all of that. But the 4 5 months of I worked well in that project, only about 6 months. But when I was working, I would get mental breakdown. I would have a knot in my stomach. I didn't know what was happening because everyone was supportive there also. My then boss, Mr. Bimal Satpathy, he was very empathetic. He gave me all the leeway. You understand the project because it was super technical. You have to write, you have to respond to RFPs, which is not a very easy thing to do. It was high stake engagement, like $10 million and upwards of that. So high pressure, but very nice to learn. I did not know what was happening. I went back to my therapist, and one thing led to another, and we realized that my body was having a trauma response. My in laws stayed very close to my new office, the TCS office, and the route that I would take every day to go to office used to lead to their house. And it was my body's way of protecting me from the trauma that I went through. So that was something I realized, oh, that's when it felt like one elephant was lifted off my shoulder, literally. Because now I knew what was wrong with me. Now it was up to me to get it fixed, take all the help in the world I can, and get it fixed. So the analogy I normally give people is, see, when you're in a dark room and you suddenly hear a noise, the first thing you think is, oh, it's a ghost or it's a thief. It could be a plastic bag rolling around on the floor because of the fan. But because you can't see it, you expect the worst, right? But the minute you understand, oh, it's just a paper bag, or it's maybe an open window that's closing and shutting because of the wind, suddenly you don't feel that scared anymore. And that is when I realized the number one thing for me to have a sustainable life beyond my mental health condition, whatever it may be, is to be very self-aware of the triggers that I'm going to have in my life. Because without that, I'm going to be a lost person. I will not be able to function. And that's when I took up CBT and NLP for self-learning. So that for me, I'm a certified geek. I have to do my own research and understand everything for myself. So I got into certification CBT, NLP, thanks to TCS, which very open-heartedly sponsored all the certifications that I wanted to do. And I did that, and I understood so much about mental health conditions in general for myself, and which helped me to then kind of deal with it. And again, a few years went by. I joined talent development team. My new boss over here was super helpful. However, I was not still diagnosed of bipolar, mind you. I was still taking into consideration, and I have depression and anxiety. One day, though, I don't know what got into my mind. I wrote a very bad mail to a senior associate. Was uncalled for. That person was actually right in their place. I don't know what happened to me. I thought I am invincible and I can talk anyhow with anybody. Very unprofessional of me when I look back. And I had copied my then boss, Shilpa. She immediately called me. Like, Varsha, this is not you. Go get yourself checked. She understands the nuances of it. So she said, no, this is not you. I know you. Go get checked. That when I spoke with Vijay sir, that is when I told him what happened, and he told me go talk to Dr. Bala, and then I got in touch with him. He gave me some tests to do. We had an extensive talk. That is, and see, bipolar again is very difficult to diagnose to begin with. So what? Then he asked me my family history and all of that. By then, I had discovered a few years before that my father also had the same condition, and he was diagnosed as bipolar. That's what my mom admitted to me years later. So he's like, see, you might be bipolar type 2 then because your hypomania is still contained. It can get out of hand, but it's not very bad. Your depression phases are worse than your hypomania. So looks like more to do with bipolar type 2. This was in 2021, 2021 or beginning of 2022. So all these years finally culminated for me to completely then understand what is happening with me. So since 2021, 2022, I have been very self-aware about when I'm hitting my depressive phase, when I'm hitting my hypomania phase, because I can't bring that with me to office. I currently, because of the regional head, there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of team that I have to manage. I have had two people in my team who are diagnosed of depression themselves. One person who has legit PTSD because of a abusive father, and all of those things they could share with me because I have been able to find that balance for me. It's not easy. It's not been easy. I have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, do all of my rituals so that by 8 o'clock I'm able to leave uh, my home to come to office and function the way I'm expected to function in this role. I refrain from using the word normal because that's not a word that you would use for anybody. Um, and this was told to me so beautifully by Ritika from Nimhans. Vijay sir had put me in touch with some Nimhans folks, and I had gone to IASER as one of the panel speakers for lived experience. And when we were discussing, she was like, Varsha, see, mental health is a spectrum. It's not black and white. It's not like some people have mental health conditions and some people don't. All of us do at some point. So we don't have to really feel any different from anyone, right? Uh, it was put so beautifully by him. He gave so many examples of that. And since then, I have been very vocal about this whole thing. And yeah, that has been my journey with mental health. And I have my bad days. I have my days when I've cried my eyes out, and I have told this to her. Even at home, my mom did not understand what depression is. And if I would cry, she would just ignore me and go or feel ashamed of what has happened. She was ashamed of me being a divorcee and all of that I had to cope up with. Eventually, I had to kind of be the bigger person and understand that my mother is also an adult who did not have an easy life. It cannot be easy to be with an alcoholic person who was diagnosed of bipolar, finally died of cancer at a very young age. My dad was my age. I'm 40 now. So my dad was 40 when he passed away because of lung cancer. So it cannot be an easy journey for my mom. And from there, she was 35 back then. To raise two girls, get them married, get them settled, make sure they get educated. So she would have so much trauma and so much pain inside her. And there's no support system that she has. I have bipolar India. I have PCS care. I have so much. I can freely talk about it. I can articulate what is happening with me now. She still can't. So I had to then look at her beyond being my mother. I had to look at her as a fellow um, person going through trauma. And that led us to bond with each other. If sir, I don't know if sir remembers this. There's once I was doing a similar talk. I had just fought with my mom over something, and I came in tears to Vijay sir and like, she's just not understanding all of this. Um, all of that now has moved to a point where I just go and tell my mom, Ma, I'm depressed today. I'm gonna cry a little bit. So don't worry about it. So she'll joke about it. She'll go cry there. I have to sleep. Don't cry around me. You're too loud. And then we would have a laugh about it. So now that part of me is also healing. And in the course, what I realized is the more you become solution oriented for yourself, nothing else, for yourself, the more open you become to being self-aware about what is happening. For the lack of any phrase, You wouldn't play the victim card in the situation where we default to playing victim card, right? So I never ask, oh, why me? Why did I have to be? My sister doesn't have bipolar. Of the two of us, I got the worst of the genes. I inherited this. Why me? I never ask that. Okay, I have it. Now what? Going forward. I want to move forward. I want to learn. I want to be a better person regardless of my mental health condition, right? So, fine, I'm been dealt with this card. Now what? So, with that, it becomes easy to be authentic with people. It becomes easy for me to not feel inferior when I walk into a room. So they have their strengths, I have mine. I think all my creative streak that comes is from the mental health conditions I have because I read somewhere, I don't know how much of it is true, that prolonged mental health condition literally changes the components of your brain. You start thinking differently, you start perceiving things differently. And if that has contributed to my creative side or anything that I bring to work, that's a bonus. And I would not give it up for anything else. I would not want to give up any part of my personality, knowing that this is being shaped by my mental health conditions also. Of course, there are different factors, but this also has been a great contributor, and I don't want to give up. I am okay with it. No, it's there, it's there. I will figure it out. So yeah, that's it.
Such awesome sharing, Varsha. Really, really authentic from the heart. And see, I think the most amazing part is that, you are sharing this sitting right there in the office to share something which is, I know that the people know what you are about, where you come from. Despite that, there are people mulling around you at TCS, and then you have this intimate kind of sharing, even the personal moments of your life. That itself tells us the woman who's facilitating this session. Having watched your journey since the Zestos days, which you referred to the meeting, you have come such a long way and makes me so proud of our peer, right? And you're so humble about all your stellar achievements. Now, I don't think you referred to the L&D division that you were heading and the number of people you trained. What was the number? Can we 52,000. Yeah, you did mention that in brief, yeah, in the passing. But I think that what does that tell you? A person who herself was grappling with so much, going through so much strife in her life, had put in her papers in that organization, and then there came a period where she had developed so much skill that she was interested with the L&D process of 52,000 people. I think that itself deserves a massive round of applause. And now you have been with the organization for close to a decade, right, Varsha? That's
Yes,
also so,
completed.
yeah, right.
Did
So,
10 years last September, this September,
yeah,
last
yeah.
month.
So before we throw the floor open to the audience, Varsha, and thank you so much for this super inspiring session again. A couple of queries that came to my mind from what was being discussed. We talk about accommodative policies at workplace, supportive bosses, but we know how human behavior is, right? Have you encountered people who have cold-shouldered you at workplace, right? Have you felt that your troubles were sort of invalidated, yeah, or that you were sort of magnifying what you were going through? And then how did you cope with it? Because that can be, especially when we are in a vulnerable phase.
Correct.
The workshop today might take these kind of inputs very differently from somebody going through a struggle, a period of struggle. Am I right? Yeah. It's our
Yes,
framework also, internal framework, which defines the responses then. Yeah.
correct. So, sir, this might be a slightly unpopular answer, but the initial struggle that I had was not very easy because I had to first prove myself.
Right.
Uh, the only way someone is going to entrust or have faith in me despite my mental health condition is if I prove myself first. And that journey was slightly difficult for me, because even when I joined talent development team, um, there were times when I was completely breaking from inside, but I couldn't tell anyone from outside because it's my accountability. I
So true.
cannot, yeah, I cannot go and say, oh, please be a little soft on me because of my mental health condition. Although that is the ideal case scenario and that should be done organically by people around you. But that's the world we live in. You have to prove yourself first, and then people would respond to it. So initially, there is a band system that you get in TCS, A being the highest performer, then B is someone who does their work in a good way. C is someone you're not very happy with, and D is absolutely you are kicked out after that from the organization. So when I joined talent development, and because I was coping with a lot of things, and my team was geographically scattered, it was bang in middle of COVID, so it was in an isolation that I would work in. For the first 2 consecutive years, I ended up getting C. My reputation was not very good in the talent development team that I was working in.
Yeah.
But um, mental health condition aside, I'm a driven person in general, if you just leave that portion out of me. So that was not acceptable to me. I knew a portion of me knew that I am not, what to say, a C kind of a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have the potential. But for someone to realize my potential, I have to showcase that. Otherwise, nobody is going to give you that opportunity. Nobody has the time, and frankly, to be blunt, nobody cares. So I had to take that step and turn that C into an A. And since then, I have not looked back. I have gotten something very rare last to last year. I got an A plus, not just A. A plus is when you get double increment. And that in a team of 600 people across globally, only 2 people get every year.
Wow. Wow.
And then I ended up getting that. After that, then it's a privilege, it's a luxury that I can afford. I can very openly then tell people, yes, I have mental health condition. Because now people are more receptive to understanding what it is. Because the image that people have, the stereotypical image that people have of someone who suffers from depression or bipolar is that this person is weak or this person is not fit to perform at a workplace. Now that I have proven myself that I can be driven, I can take the responsibility and literally do a good job, it then allows me a platform to talk about it. Because
Yeah.
then that changes perception for people. The first,
Sure.
the first reaction I always say, oh, but you don't look depressed. Then I ask them,
Yeah.
what does a depressed person look like to you?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah.
So when they say, I said, that is what I want to change. What you just
Mhm.
said, I want to change that. And I think it is a moral duty that I have since then I have realized to talk more about this because every time anybody talks about depression is when one celebrity has a very public meltdown. So that kind of further exasperates that stereotypical
Yeah.
image about mental health. So more people who are very productive and really good at their job and but still suffering from mental health should talk more about it. Uh,
Sure.
but
Sure.
but but I understand that before you reach that space, the journey is very, very difficult because
Sure.
despite all the odds, you have to prove yourself. Despite you feeling every day, the world is so unfair, my boss is so unfair, my team is so unfair, they have an added advantage, I have this disability, I have this, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to anybody except you. And that is a blunt truth you have to accept about life. Only then, I think, at least for me, it was true, only then I could evolve and make my life more sustainable for myself. Yeah, that's it.
It's brilliant. And I love the approach. So instead of getting rattled or feeling sort of triggered that you don't look depressed, your response is asking a question. What does yeah? So the onus shifts to the person, right? What
Correct.
so you try to understand perceptions, right? What do people perceive with mental health as, right? And
Correct.
so that, like we say, that we don't wear our conditions on our faces or our persona at all, right? And that's why it goes under the radar. Really awesome sharing. And